Well, it's now more than 48 hours since a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas came into effect. For now, it is holding up. But as thousands of Palestinians continue to return to Gaza, what lies ahead for a city that's been left in ruins? Mehran Kamrava is a professor of government at Georgetown University in Qatar, and he joins me now live from Doha. Mehran, really good to have you on the program with us. Now, before I get to the rebuilding of Gaza, is Hamas effectively still governing the Strip and able to administer basic services like water, electricity, food supplies, and even education for children?
That's an excellent question. Gaza is practically right now ungovernable, and there's an awful lot that needs to be done. Basic services are being delivered, but it is by a combination of Hamas-run, whatever is left of Hamas administration, as well as UNRWA and a number of other on-the-ground non-governmental organizations. So schools are not in session, hospitals are not functioning, but at least there's a semblance of normalcy where life is beginning to return to normal. Refugees are trying to go back to homes, which in many cases don't exist.
Yeah, I'm quite curious. You mentioned this underground NGOs. I've yet to hear about these as far as Gaza is concerned. Who are these? Who are members of these NGOs?
Well, you know, individuals, humans can be quite resourceful when need be. So oftentimes what we have are neighborhood groups that are kind of pooling their meager resources and trying to get things done, providing shelter and food for one another. So a lot of it is not necessarily recognized NGOs, but literally individuals that have taken matters into their own hands and trying to provide for their own basic needs.
You know, Hamas has, as they were governing Gaza, we've not seen elections for quite a long time. Do you see the authority being challenged from within?
You know, there are conflicting assumptions about that. On the one hand, Gazans are terribly annoyed that Hamas brought this genocide onto them and gave an excuse to the Israeli cabinet to unleash its wrath after or on October 7th. But on the other hand, we hear all these stories that Hamas has been able to recruit, and more Palestinians have more and more Palestinians have been volunteering to join Hamas. I think in the absence of functioning society, in the absence of meaningful means of communication and information, that's really difficult to determine. And I think what we have to see is to wait and see over the next few months how things unfold and what developments begin to happen on the ground in Gaza.
And how does one even sort of contemplate rebuilding Gaza City? What's needed and how long could it even take?
Well, an awful lot is needed, not just in Gaza City, but throughout the Strip. The Strip has been literally rendered uninhabitable over the course of the last 15 months or so. And so there's an awful lot of development assistance that's needed. This is where the countries of the Persian Gulf come into the equation. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar are incredibly wealthy. They have had a set of fraternal historical ties with the Palestinians. So I think that's important. European Union, if they really mean what they say about human values, I think they need to step up. And I think this is going to take a global effort, not just a national or regional effort. What we have on our hands is a devastating war, mass devastation, and it's going to take an awful lot of reconstruction and rebuilding.
Yes, but do those countries you mentioned, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, where you are, do they have to strike a very fine balance because they've got very good, strong relations with the US, which in turn will do anything to make sure that Israel, the welfare of Israelis are held firm?
That's a very good point. I think what we're going to see is these countries will be stepping in at the request of the United States, at the behest of the United States. And countries like UAE, of course, have formal relations with Israel. And, even the Saudis, the Qataris can use this as leverage to tell the Americans, okay, we will engage in kind of good neighborly relations, or we will step in to help the rebuilding of Gaza in return for certain advantages, whether those are more American weaponry or fewer questions asked. And of course, we know that in the White House, we have someone now who takes pride in being a very effective businessman.
Yes, and what did you make then of Donald Trump? Because he was sort of casting doubts as to whether this current ceasefire in its 3 phases would go as planned.
I think Trump is being quite realistic. There's an awful lot of bad blood. There's a lot of trust that is built into this agreement, assumptions of trust that's built into this agreement. And each successive phase is supposed to be negotiated during the current phase. And that takes an awful lot of trust and blind faith. And I think Trump is being realistic. I think it will take a tremendous leap of faith to assume that now we're going to have peace between Israelis and Palestinians, or in Gaza.
And look, Qatar, where you are, the Qatari government, they've one of the few governments that has good and direct communications with Hamas. How do you see Qatar's role proceeding in the next few months?
A few months ago, we were told that Qatar is going to be asking members of Hamas to leave. But as you mentioned, Qatar is one of the only countries that has maintained open lines of communication. And as the ceasefire agreement is supposed to continue to be negotiated and continue to be worked on, there's need to continue to facilitate the discussion, Qatar has so far proven to be an honest broker in these negotiations. And I think there will continue to be a need for an actor like Qatar to be there to facilitate discussion, facilitate negotiations, and if things go south, to then put pressure on all sides, or to kind of have the resources to ensure that that the different parties come together and try to work things out as things begin to unfold.
So will Qatar and the other Arab states, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, as you mentioned, will they even try to sort of, push forward as little as possible, inch by inch, a two-state solution? Because many people that I've spoken to do acknowledge that it is the only solution whereby we will not see violence anymore. But it does not seem that Israel or Israelis do want that, and neither it seems does the US. Is there any hope for this two-state solution?
Conditions on the ground over the last couple of decades have made the two-state solution unrealistic and not feasible. And if anything, the war in Gaza made it even more unfeasible and unrealistic. So while diplomatically it's convenient and it makes perfect sense to talk about the two-state solution, and a number of people talk about it, I think the two-state solution has been rendered dead. And I think we need to begin to think outside the box, think of alternatives whereby Palestinians and Israelis can live in dignity side by side and with one another.
Yes, definitely lots of work in that respect. Professor Mehran Kamrava, really appreciate your insights and analysis this evening and hope to speak with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.